Welcome back. This is the 16th video and it kicks off part 3 and the final part of our Squeeze Setups onboarding guide. Here we're going to turn everything we've learned into a repeatable habit. Part 1 was all about building a good foundation and understanding the meaning behind the squeeze and the different triggers that we have. Then we moved on to part 2, where we took a look at the platform, understanding all of the different features that we have available inside. Now we come into part 3, which is applying everything into 5 simple steps that you can run every single day. Now let's start with step number 1, which is scanning the market. I think the easiest way to do this and to start your morning every single day is by opening the morning brief. If you do this before the open, it gives you the day's ranked standouts before the market or the bell has even rung, and it gives you an idea of which stocks you want to pay attention to. Places where the squeeze is either close to firing, maybe has recently fired, places where the market pulse is giving you clues about the regime changing stages, in a place where you can get advantage. You start with a short list here, and this gives you some market context instead of a blank screen. Now step 2, once I have an understanding of what's on the brief, I scan up and down to see if there's any tickers that catch my eye. I then move on to the board. Now the board is where we can read across time frames for confluence. It's where you see names that are squeezing on multiple time frames. Remember, you can configure the time frames manually that you'd like here, and you can also see which ones are actually giving you any sort of live triggers. The matrix, the trigger column, and the backtest are all important components of the squeeze board that go into making smarter, better decisions. That then takes us into step 3, which is qualifying different setups. Now this stage is all about the discipline step. It's about following a checklist, following a systematic approach that you can follow every single day. Now for every single candidate, I'm checking a few different things. 1, do we have a trigger of some sort? Remember, we've already understood a bear squeeze on its own doesn't have edges, so we focus on specific triggers. 2, do we have trend agreeing in the direction of that trigger? Do we even have a trend in the first place? Remember, we're trying to avoid places where the market is in a stage of distribution. Historically, these have not been good places for long side setups. We're also looking for places where we have several time frames that are squeezing together. This allows us to find places where we're likely to see a bigger than likely or bigger than usual move, and that's something we'd like to get behind. 2 columns we talked about, which are some basic filters, the stack column and the extension column. For the stack column, remember we talked about that range being between 20 and 80, and for the extension, we wanted to see a factor between 1 and 2.0. For the setups that meet all of the rules, places where we have a positive backtest, places where we have a signal that's brewing, and places where that 20 to 80 range and that 1 to 2.0 is met, you'll see green and triggers across the bar. Inside of HUT, which has been the move that we've been tracking, we've seen most of these triggers with our stock being a little bit less extended, and I'm going to take that as a win given how many squeezes we've seen inside of HUT 8. Now finally, number 4, which is enter a position. Once it meets all of our rules, it qualifies, put on a starter, remembering the runner study, 1/2 to 2/3 of the full size of the trigger so we don't miss the runners. You can adjust that. I just gave you the rules that I like to follow. You can also use something like a catastrophic stop if you're worried about price really going against you, and that helps make sure that you have a risk that is defined along with the potential to participate in the upside. We learned with the runner study what happens when you sit on the sidelines and how many of those trades go on to become much nicer winners that are part of our larger backtest. Finally, stage number 5, which is to sit and manage and exit your position. Once you put a position on, a lot of it is about being patient. We hold until the dots actually show us that the squeeze is firing, and many times that takes a little bit of time to play out. You can use the alerts page here to configure alerts for an alert whenever that squeeze actually fires, and that's a quick and easy way to be notified whenever a stock that you actually have a position on fires. One pro tip we talked about here was coming inside of watchlist, creating something like your active positions watchlist, and here you might add symbols every single time you add a particular stock or a position, and that way you can get the alerts to notify you whenever that squeeze fires and you can close out that position. So those are the 5 steps that you can follow every single day to take advantage of the platform. It starts with the brief to gain your bearings, then move on to the squeeze board, determine which ones qualify, and use that to go onto the charts. For the qualification process, you may also find tools like the backtester, which we talked about using, to be a helpful addition. In the next video, I'll show you the different downloads that you have available to you inside of the platform in your accounts page area, and that will then bring us to the final end of our onboarding series. I hope you've found this onboarding series to be useful so far and you've learned a thing or two, even if you're an advanced squeeze trader. A lot of this is a data-driven approach to approach squeeze trading so you can consistently profit. See you in the next video.